So this week we're doing lesson remix number 2, but it builds up significantly on the work of lesson remix number 1. So I went through a lot of the videos and I could see the different strategies that you all were giving for the specific students in our cases. And here are some of the strategies. Rocio talked about grouping, where students can support each other with language, with common languages, giving handouts, or giving students the opportunity to opt out of specific activities. Amber talked about using the microphone to amplify student voice, using Chromebooks for homework, opportunities to turn into. Esther talked about showing images, translating handouts, giving leadership opportunities. Madi talked about translating handouts. Kathy talked about using visuals such as concept map. And then generally across the entire course, everybody had a lot of great suggestions for different scaffolding strategies you could use with the 3 specific students that we created. And so the educator in me was really happy to see that a lot of the strategies that you were using fall within Universal Design for learning guidelines under the 3 columns that you see there: engagement, representation, action, and expression. For example, some of the suggestions fall under fostering collaboration and community. Other ones fall under promoting expectations and beliefs that optimize motivation or facilitating personal coping skills and strategy. You also see under the representation column, promoting an understanding across languages, illustrating through multiple media, highlighting patterns, critical features, big ideas, and relationships. And then under action and expression, you see optimizing access to tools and assistive technologies, using multiple tools for construction and composition. And so using a lot of strategies that you already have, you're going to be looking at the UDL guidelines and see what can you pull out of each column to see how you can modify your lesson up front, meaning that you can add these pieces as you design a lesson rather than coming back retroactively and kind of shoehorning a lesson into these strategies. So just as last week you looked at it through the lens of TPACK and SAMR, this week you're looking at it through the lens of ELD and UDL. So the CAS guidelines address the UDL piece. This next chart here is going to help support you with ELD. A great quote from one of my colleagues, Dina Esparza, is she asks teachers, how many of you have an English learner in your class? And typically everybody raises their hand, and then she says, congratulations, you are also an ELD teacher. And the reason is because the California requires that all students that are English learners receive integrated ELD across content areas. These columns also correspond to the levels that are probably assigned to your students within the class. You're also going to see on the left-hand side, you see the different domains: the writing, reading, speaking, and listening. And so you're going to see different strategies that might fit across all 3 of the columns, but they're very different in their implementation. For example, you might see in emerging that it will say structuring conversations, and then you might see that same language in bridging, but you're also going to notice that the level at which you structure them are very different. If you're working with an emerging student, you would be using or asking a lot more who, what, when, where, why questions and accepting short answers. But when you're talking with a bridging student, you really want to ensure that they're using academic language as a requirement. And so the key, kind of defining features, the emerging student is your newcomer student, the one that will be very limited English proficient. And then the bridging student is the student who's just about there, ready to be reclassified. But in this last column are also a lot of our long-term English learners. And these are actually the majority of English learners in California. A lot of them would be in the middle school and the high school levels. And so what your task for this week is to look at the 3 learners that we have in scenario 1 from week number 1, or you can choose learners from your own class if you really want to tailor this to meet the needs of your own students. You can choose any of the 6 lessons that I gave you for the first week, or you can use a lesson from your own class, and you're going to be using some of those UDL guidelines. You got to select one from each column, and you're also going to be using the ELD matrix to use the proper scaffolding strategies. Again, how does this assignment look when you turn it in? It could be similar to what you did with lesson remix number 1. You can submit a paper, you can submit a lesson plan that you've redesigned, or you could submit the artifacts. So I've really enjoyed seeing some of you make the presentations and then sharing those on Flip. So that's what you're going to be turning in. You'll be turning in the artifacts or the paper that you create, you are going to also be sharing and discussing that on Flip. Please reach out if you have any questions, and it's been a humbling experience seeing what you all are doing with the work in lesson remix number 1.